you for the invitation of this co-creation. How can we be of service to you?
Yeah, Arjun. My first question is, I had a session 1.5 years ago with Jacqueline Smith. And Jacqueline Smith is an expert in hybrid theme. And of course, she was mentioning the hybrid children I have. And in the end of the session, she said that she's sensing hybrid energy from my side. And so she said that 2 times in the end of the session. And so my impression is that I'm, of course, a hybrid too. But from my personal journey, my story with this is missing. So I don't have any memory about being on ships or stuff like that, or taking on board or things like that. And but I know that I'm a hybrid, and so I would like to know whether there are what were the circumstances under which this is happening, and in which way my mother is involved in the process. So to get some clearings about this missing part. For me, it's a missing part.
Okay, thank you. We understand the curiosity. You see, those that are aware of having, in that sense, contributed or being a part, a parent in that sense, of hybrid children, always have been a part of the hybridization project themselves. It is a common factor that your DNA would not be appropriate for hybridization in the YahYel or Shalanaya, the youngest generation, on our end of the stick, you could say. If your DNA had not been prepared for, you could say, membership, in a sense, in this project to begin with. So in other words, the idea of the preparation of the DNA travels often, most often, through family lineages. Not just you, not just your mother, but your grandmother and people before that in your family history have in that sense been a member of the hybridization project, a volunteer that on a soul level they decided to stand up for, to be a part of, because they understood no matter it would be unconscious for them through their physically focused lives, they understood it would eventually help upgrade your Earth and facilitate for probable future versions of Earth that would be of a much higher energy frequency, much closer to what you understand to be world peace and harmony and balance in that sense. So way back, your family and the family of your partner have both been contributing in several ways. Now, the quote-unquote amount of what is generally called under humanity, the amount of abductions, not a word that we subscribe to, but it is what you call it. The amount of abductions has been different and very, very other of intensity when you look at those first members in your family that volunteered. They were, you could say, an aspect of the very, very first adjustments to their own DNA, which meant very often only but one visitation would suffice, was enough, before they would reach the age of fertility, meaning that by the time they would be able to have children, and we are now talking your grandparents, by the time they would be able to have children, let's just say that the seed or egg, depending on man or woman, would be slightly bit more prepared for carrying and interacting with higher density beings such as ourselves. Now, along the generational lines, this has been increasing, and you yourself, in that sense, are following your family lineage line of contribution. You are the peak project, you could say, result of these little adjustments. For you too, the first visitations, although a lot more frequent and a lot more active, happened before your fertile age and even continued for quite a while after, and you are still having some encounters. Now, understand that those of you who are not lucidly or consciously aware of these particular visitation memories have decided on their own higher self level to not be aware of these memories. The higher self that unconditionally loves you in every single moment provides, in a sense, what you could call a buffer or safety filter for information that your rational mind is not yet ready to cope with. You see, some of these particular visitations weren't what you would practically interpret as pleasant right now. Do you understand this?
Yes.
We're not saying that you were in any way, shape, or form harmed, but we are saying that the rational self of the child version of you, to just take it from the start, has had interpretations where it felt as if it was taken against its will and treated against preferential wishes. Now, that was the rational mind, and it responded in that way because you were raised to believe that the things that were happening, you could say, in that moment are not quote-unquote supposed to happen, and you were not anymore aware of your soul agreement in that moment. To protect you, to protect yourself from memories that would truly upset you and traumatize you where you are right now, and to allow you the freedom to enjoy the interaction that you have with your hybrid children right now, and the love-based vision that you carry in your heart, to allow you to ground yourself into that stronger. You as an individual have decided on a higher self level to wait until you feel completely grounded in that before the beginnings of these memories can come back to you. Because then when they do come back to you, because they will at some point, don't worry, when they do come back to you, you will be able in that moment, though you may feel a bit of a trace of anxiety, you will still be able to understand what was actually going on, and you will even be able to telepathically connect, quote unquote, back in time with the beings that were with you back then and ask them the questions that you as a child were afraid to ask, because back then you did not know that you could interact and communicate with these beings. Which is why it felt as fearful. Do you understand this?
Yes, of course, of course.
Okay, well, thank you.
I follow you. Yeah, I made in March. I made a hypnose session in Frankfurt with an expert. He's also an expert in IT contact and stuff like that. And it was okay, but I noticed that not real memories are coming up. So it was more like a playground. And so even in that state,
yes, you can
it looks to me that my higher self is protecting the pictures.
Yes.
Protecting, separate me from the real pictures. Huh?
Also, the idea that hypnosis can unveil everything is a bit of a narrow-minded vision, because you see, the realm that you shift into while you are under hypnosis or in a deep state of meditation is actually closer to the pure energy frequency of your higher self, meaning that if there is any filter truly still necessary on any kind of subject, it will remain and actually get stronger.
Yes.
Now, for those who are truly ready and on whose path the higher self understands it would now serve to have particular memories surface, for them, hypnosis or deep meditation can be excellent ways to access such levels of understanding. And because the majority of people are ready to look at their quote-unquote challenges while they are under hypnosis, it has resulted into a dogmatic kind of thinking amongst many other people, thinking that hypnosis will always bring you the memories that you are looking for. But if you are looking from a rationally curious mind and the heart is not actually ready, then nothing will shift. Nonetheless, in that particular session, you have opened the door a crack, is what your guides are telling us right now. So it wasn't that nothing happened, but you just got a sneak peek.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Arjun. And I have the next question.
Yes.
In the last session, we spoke about my hybrid children, and it was 13 and one is on the way. And because one is on the way means I'm kind of still part of this project. And now 16 months later, I'd like to know whether this is 14 or there's still more happening, or I'm still in the project, or is the project closed for me?
We can't say whether it is closed. In that sense, you are an active member because your energy frequency is still on the map for this project. Do you understand? You're still volunteering. So, depending on your own experiential journey throughout this density and decisions you take in your own daily life, it will remain on the map as quote-unquote interesting as a volunteering DNA strand or not. But it can differ per day. There are literally days when your light is not lightening up. Today we see it lightening up. So there will not be a rigid yes or no, you could say, contribution in that sense, because your overall soul decision to be a part of it is still shimmering through, and on some days very brightly. Now understand that there are people on your planet that are over the age of 70 and still volunteering. It isn't connected to age in that sense.
Yes.
Nor for men, nor for women. We can almost feel the question in the background. So that goes for both, you could say.
Katharina also. Yes.
Exactly.
She's part of this. Huh? I cannot telepathically connect to the hybrid children, but Katharina is doing it.
You can.
And there are particular.
You can. Very well, you can.
Mm-hmm. And I have three hybrid children where I have a deep connection to. One is Vainanda, is our daughter.
Yes.
And then there's Hani and Hanan. And my question is if they have a question to me. So whether the hybrid children want to know something.
Immediately you could say almost like a ping pong response to what you just shared earlier, why they are asking, or one of them is asking. The oldest is asking, why do you believe that you cannot telepathically connect with us?
I think it's a mental frame. It's a mental limit. It's a limit in the mind frame, or in the
You understand?
opinion.
You understand that these frames of references are optional. You can choose them or not.
I know, yeah.
So if you want to, there's the open invitation from all of them to choose a different frame, to understand that you can play with them, and that the idea of telepathic communication doesn't necessarily mean you get a spelled out answer or an audio in your head, a voice in that sense, but it means that when you, from your heart, send a message to them, it will always arrive, that you are invited to trust that it does, and to understand that if you continue to look from the energy frequency of your heart into the world around you, that they have been, that they will answer you through the forms of synchronicity, dreams, and so forth. And in that way, you are having open communication.
Yes. And she has more questions, Vainanda?
that would be, or would have been, the most relevant one for now. She has another update for you, just linking back to your earlier question. Yes, the one that was on the way by now has been born and has already aged a little further than you would expect, because time is evolving quite differently on this end. That is right now a 3-year-old boy and a boy.
Ah, wow. Beautiful.
So congratulations.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, then any more questions from my hybrid children so far?
Not right now.
Not right now, good. All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you.